Alright, so we have a vertex and we have a point. How can we use that to find an equation? Okay, plug it into vertex form. So vertex form is y equals ax minus h squared plus k. Okay, so what do I know? H and k. What's h? What's k? Okay. What else do I know? I know a point for x and y. What is the x value of that point? 0. And what's the y value of that point? Okay. So I've plugged in h and k. I've plugged in x and y. Okay. What do I do with this information? Simplify and solve for a. Okay, so let's go through all of our steps. What comes first? Parentheses. So 0 minus 50 is negative 50 squared is 2,500a plus 35 equals 15. Subtract 35. Now what?
Take out 0.
Oops, not cross it out. Just divide it. 2,500. Okay, how can we simplify negative 20 over 2,500? Okay, so take out your zeros, and then how many times does negative 2 go into 250? So I have negative 1 over 125. So I have an equation, right? What's my equation? Y equals okay. Is that all it asked me to do today? Okay, it asked me to find the height of the graph 90 feet away from the origin. So what does that tell me? Yeah, x is 90. So what am I going to do with that information? Plug it in, solve for y. So when I get done, I want 90 something. I want to fill in a coordinate. Okay, so I have negative 1 over 125, 90 minus 50, just plugging in my x value, plus 35. Okay, so let's do this. What is 90 minus 50 squared? 1,600 plus 35. Okay, what's 1/125th of that? Or sorry, negative 1/125th of that. So 1,600 times negative 1 divided by 125. Okay, so do 1,600 times negative 1. Be negative 1,600, then divide by 125. Negative 12.8 plus 35. What does y equal? 22.2. There we go. That did. Okay, so one of the things we look at for quadratics is application problems to where you have something going up, and what goes up must come down, right? So, for instance, here we have a ball that's thrown straight up from 3 meters ground. Velocity 15 meters. Our question is, when does it hit the ground? And we'll figure out through this unit that we can actually create an equation out of this. With our starting height, we already know this part because we know that in standard form, our C value is our y-intercept, right? So that tells me I'm going to start at 3. It travels upward at 14 meters per second, so I'm going to use that as 14 times the time. And then if you simplify this gravity form right here, it gives you approximately negative 5t squared. Okay, it's a very simplified form. So h is our height in meters, and t is our time in seconds. So we can write it, our height is equal to 3 plus 14t minus 5t squared. And again, we'll get into how we got all that later. And if I wanted to know when it hit the ground, what would my height be then? 0. So I'm just going to change my h for 0. And then switch it to standard form so that I've got my t squared coming first, plus 14t plus 3 equals 0. Okay, the way we would solve this, we'll factor it. Okay, so we need to know what factoring looks like. And every time we factor, start off in standard form. You're going to start off with ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay? So, the first thing you do when you factor, you're going to multiply the a and the c values together. Okay, so we're filling in the notes at the top of your paper. So, our coefficient on x squared and our constant get multiplied together. Then whatever number we get from that, whatever product that gives us, we find the factors. And what do I mean by factors? Yeah, numbers that multiply to give me that product. Okay, so then we're going to determine which signs, we're going to determine which factors, I got a little bit ahead of myself. We're going to determine which factors can add or subtract to get my b value. So essentially what I'm talking about here is try to get the same thing as a, but add to b. That's a little bit more since when we start actually numbers. Okay. Choose signs for your factors. Your product C and your signs B. Okay, so factor coefficients of your x terms to help you fill in the box. You remember that box that we multiplied things and how we multiplied with that? We're basically going backwards to figure out how we would get these outside factors today. Okay? And so we're going to use the info in the box to find your factors. Now, when I say factors here, I'm talking about something different here. The factors here, we're talking about the factors here means what multiplies together to give me back the x. Okay, again, right now this seems very abstract. Once we start putting it in step by step, it'll make a little bit more sense. Okay, so let's try first. So, what is my problem? I have x squared plus 6x plus. What is a times c? Because that's my first step, a times c. Right, so that would be 8. What's my b value? 6. So I need to identify those two things first. Alright. 8 give you 8. 2, 4. Anything else? What about negative 2 and negative 4? Negative 1 and negative 8? Does that work? Okay. Alright. So I've found my factors that multiply to a times c. What's my next step? Find one of these factors that will add to b. Okay, so what of these factors, all of them multiply to a times c, but which of them add to b? 2 and 4. Okay, so 2 and 4, right? 2 times 4 gives me 2 plus 4 gives me 6. So these work. Those are the factors I want to use. They're the same factors that multiply to 8 and add to 6. That was what I was looking for. So these are my coefficients for my x terms in my box. So I'm going to use 2x, and I'm going to use 4x. Okay, so now I'm going to put everything in the box, and we're basically going to work backwards from how we used to multiply. So my first term is x squared. I've broken this 6x down into 2x and 4x. And now this final c comes into 8. Okay, so now I look for my GCF. What is the greatest common factor of x? What's the greatest? 4, right? What's the greatest common factor of x squared and 4x? And what's the greatest common factor of 2x and 8? So that gives me x plus 2 times x plus 4. Alright, so we're going to do one more. Take a second, look at this, make sure you have. Okay, so on this one, what's a times c? And what's your b value? Negative 5. Okay, so I'm going to look at the factors of 6. What are the factors of 6? 1 and 6. Which of those add to negative 5? So that's going to use negative 2 times negative 3 will give me 6. Negative 2 plus negative 3 will give me negative 5. So my x terms for my box. Negative 2x, negative 3x. Okay, so x squared. And then it doesn't matter which order you put these in. I could put negative 2x here, negative 3x here, I could put negative 3x here, and negative 2x here. Doesn't matter which order you put this in. Okay? And then 6 finishes it out. Alright, what is the GCF of x squared and negative 3x? X. Okay, pulling a negative, what about 2x's? Negative 2. Okay, so what's the GCF of x squared and negative 2x? Okay, pull out your negative, what's the x squared, or what is the GCF of 3x and 6? 3. X minus 2.